Okay, so it's become time to predict some games for the last time this season. To start off, let's look at how things went last week. As we can see, I am at 93 points, which means that with the 6 games we have to predict this week, I could at best come 1 point short of another Battle.Right Pro League chest. And the mystery prize. That is disheartening. Anyway, let's get into predicting this week's games, shall we? Semifinals in North America and Europe. So let's start off with Space Station Gaming versus Youngsung. So last season's finalists are facing each other in the semifinal already. And not only that, I think these are still the 2 best teams in NA. I can't wait to see Jeter versus Big Brain Bloom in this draft phase. And while SSG are the reigning world champions, I've heard people lean toward Youngsung this time around. They have consistently looked good, and SSG, once again, they ended up not even winning their group. But the once again is the key here, right? Just like last season, SSG started off a bit slow. However, last week, even with Bloom on Bako and Proster on Paloma, they looked great. I think they looked really good. And we know from my interview with Averse that in season 2 they were going to be a bit more experimental and try out new things to improve in the long run. The point here is to keep improving and keep their edge for season 3 when there is another LAN on the line. So the question for me is, have this season being more focused on experimenting and improving in the long run meant that Youngsung might have gone ahead of them a little in the short run? I'm gonna go ahead and say no though. I think that this series will be tighter than last season's finals, but if needed, I think SSG can fall back to what they know best, and on that, I think they are still the best team in the world. So I'm gonna have to see them do a lot worse than they have done before I start doubting them here. So prediction going to Space Station Gaming for me. Next, we have the Beast Hunter versus Psy. I think this is going to be a really close series. Psy should have convinced everyone by now that they are a top team in NA. There's a level of consistency though to the Beast Hunter that we haven't really seen in Psy yet. One thing that could actually hurt the Beast Hunter, however, is the fact that they did not win their group. This might sound strange, winning their group is a bad thing, but the Beast Hunter and Psy are both new rosters. They have limited experience together as a group. There are very experienced members in the teams, but as a 3-man unit, these teams are fairly new. So Psy come into this week with 1 more week of experience where they played 2 best of 5s, one against SSG where they did not really get rolled over. They looked kind of good in that series. So they could come in more hot to this than the Beast Hunter actually does. The Beast Hunter, however, I will still give them the edge considering how strong they've looked this season, but this is going to go all the way to 5 games. I give a 3-2 win to the Beast Hunter, but I could very, very well be wrong here. Okay, so going over to Europe, our first semi-final is Impact versus E United, and this is a really interesting matchup because E United have now shown that they are a consistently good team. The one thing that made me bet against them last week is the fact that we hadn't seen them bring their A game more than once. So while I already knew that the level of their A game was great, one great game wasn't that much to go on. Last week though, versus Team Hype, they showed off that A game level again and it looked really, really good. However, this time they're facing Impact, and regardless of how much I like United, they kind of become my favorite team to watch. I find myself asking, how could I justify not betting on Impact? Another interesting thing about these 2 teams is that last week we saw E United be a bit more flexible in their drafts and even in their roles, which is something that we've seen in Impact as well before. And I think in these 2 teams we see 2 quite aggressive teams. So these 2 teams, they're stylistically more similar now than they were before, and they've both performed as expected in their respective groups. Impact winning their groups, although they had to go all the way to a tiebreaker for that, and E United ending up second in their group behind Dolos, who quite early showed that they're the favorites to win that group. Another thing that makes it hard to judge is the fact that they've been in separate groups. We haven't seen these teams face each other yet. Yes, Impact won their group, but remember they had to go to a tiebreaker versus Team Hyped, who won one game against Impact during the group stage. And in last week's series between E United and Team Hyped, E United actually rolled over Team Hyped. So if we just go on those separate things, we could come to a conclusion that E United is better than the team that took Impact all the way to a tiebreaker for first seed of that group. Now, this is not a great way to measure the strength of two teams in relation to each other, how they performed against completely different teams, but it's at least something to go on. And that makes me think that E United look kind of good. However, another thing that we can think back to is just the legacy of Impact. Impact, they're the Season 1 LAN finalists. They're the champions in EU. Their last season's LAN, they became the second best team in the world, right? We also know that a big characteristic for them is that thanks to their flexibility and individual talent, these guys can play whatever their opponents bring to the table and just do it better. And if there is something that they can imitate and just do better, they'll definitely know whatever counter there is to that comp, and they can play it so well enough to beat them. So Impact, they have this legacy in EU. They're considered one of the best teams in the world. I think if E United is ever going to beat Impact, it is now, because things are looking really good. But just considering the history of winning that Impact have, I'm going to give Impact a slight edge. So after a long deliberation, I end up at what probably would be the default prediction for many. Impact ends up winning this series, but the point of making this long deliberation is to show how close this series has a potential to be. I have to go to quite arbitrary arguments to make a case for both teams, since we haven't really seen these teams play each other before. But yeah, I'm going to end with Impact winning this series, moving on to the European finals. And last prediction of the day that will decide who, in my mind, will face Impact in the finals. We have Dolos versus Team Hyped. And in this match, I'm predicting Dolos to take the win. I think that they were in a tougher group than Team Hyped, and they also dominated that group. So in my mind, Dolos have kind of looked like a finals team all season long, and I don't expect that to change now. So Dolos is my bet. Alright, thank you for watching this little prediction video, the last prediction video of Season 2. I hope things have gone well with your predictions and that you've scraped together a lot of nice rewards. The finals weren't predictable on BPL.gg, predict.bpl.gg, since, well, who participates in the finals aren't decided yet. If my predictions stick though, we'll have SSG versus the Beast Hunter in NA. I think SSG will win that. If we look to EU, my prediction says that Impact and Dolos will face each other in the finals. And whenever Impact plays in EU, I put them as the favorites. It's hard to get away from that, but at the same time, Dolos have looked so gosh darn good this season. So yeah, this is kind of like the time to prove yourself for both Impact and Dolos. Dolos to prove that, yeah, we are not only the best team in our group, we are the best team in EU now, which they very well might be. Or for Impact to prove that, no, we are still the defending European champions, and regardless of how good other teams get, they're still not on our level yet. So yeah, I'm going to give a slight favor to Impact, but I think EU is way more open than NA are right now. If you like these little videos, I'll keep doing them for Season 3. Hopefully I'll be more caught up on SA as well. So if you like this thing, and if you like my interviews that I do, don't be ashamed to hit that subscribe button. It's okay. You can do it.